So welcome back to my video series on RK-CAD training. While I was in the middle of recording the first couple of videos, they released a brand new update, and I wanted to go over the features in the update. So the first thing they did was they increased the number of pens, which are over here, which are how you set the laser parameters for the different layers. So again, in RK-CAD they call them pens instead of layers. The original version had 10, 0 through 9. This one now has 100 different layers, 0 through 99. And I'll scroll way over here so you can see there's 99 different possible pens or layers that you can have. So that is one of the new updates. The other new update that they did, or one of them, was that they added the ability to import SVG files. And in my original Getting Started series, I told you that they didn't have that ability, that you had to use AI files. You might still want to do that, but they did add the ability to import SVG vector files. There are some caveats and gotchas with that, so let's go over them now. So to import an SVG file, just like any other vector file, you come here and click this vector file import icon, and here are some SVG files that I've created for this demo. Now I want to show you what happens if all of the objects in the SVG are grouped when you save it as an SVG. So here's that file. There's 3 rectangles in that file. And I'll click this preview display and see if it'll show them. It will not, so that's a clue. And I'm just going to go ahead and click open and show you what happens. So you get this message that says that they can't even open the file. And obviously it's there, but because all the objects in it are grouped, then it gives you this can't open the file message. So I'm going to click OK, and let's do a different import. So this time, let's import them where none of the rectangles are grouped. And I'm going to click Open, and that's going to bring in the 3 rectangles or squares that are in that file that are not grouped. Now, they are combined once they come in here. So if you look over here, they're combined. So it's going to treat this as one object, which might be okay if that's what you want. But if you want to move them around or whatever, you'll have to uncombine them. And the way you do that is to come to this icon right here, actually right here, uncombine, and you click that, and now you have the 3 rectangles separated out. So let me get rid of those. I'm going to select them all and press delete on the keyboard. And let's open up another one, because I want to show you what happens if they are colored in. Like you might want to pre-color your layers in the SVG file so it's easy to turn them into new pens once they're here. So here's the one where they're no grouped and they are colored, but they have a border. Okay, so I'm going to click this, and I'm going to click open, and you can see that they came in. There's the border right here. It's a little tiny line right near the edge of the viewing canvas, and we've got the 3 rectangles, but you'll notice that they're all black and they have no color. So they just get assigned to pen 1, and then you have to uncombine them and reassign them when you bring them in. So unfortunately it does not bring in colors. So let me delete those. Let's go see what happens if I bring in ones that 2 of the 3 rectangles are grouped and 1 is not. So I'm going to click that one, and I'm going to open that. And you can see that it brought in just 1 big rectangle. So it made it the size basically of the screen minus a little bit. It's 49.5 instead of 50, which is my viewing area here. All right, so what did it do? It automatically scaled it to fit the screen. All right, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go back to import again, because in our import options we have an auto scale. So what happens if I turn that off? Okay, and I do that one again with the 2 groups. Okay, and I or two of them are grouped, and I bring it in, and it gives me a little cursor to decide where I want to place the file. So let me come up here and click, and you don't see anything. And why is that? Because if I zoom way out, because it didn't try to scale it, there's the size of the rectangle that it brought in. Totally not the size I made it. Don't ask me why it does that, but it does. And I'm going to do an auto zoom to get back to see my viewing area again. So let's bring in another SVG file. So I've showed you what they look like when they're all grouped. You don't bring it in at all. No groups, it brings it in. And when two of the objects were grouped, it brought in the one remaining rectangle, but it made it really big. So I've made this file here to group with a border. All right, now why is that? What I did in this file was I made the border 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters, so it matches this. And then the other three rectangles are inside it. But it's not going to bring in the three because two of them are grouped. But let's see what that does. Now I'm going to recheck auto scale, and I'm going to click open. And that brought it in, and you can see that the rectangle out here that I made, that was the border. That one is 49.5. Should have been 50, but that's okay for now. And then this inner rectangle came in approximately the right size. It's a little small because this is not actually 50. So what I'm going to do is scale the whole thing back to 50, which is what the whole thing was, because that's what I made my border as. So I'm going to make sure my scale lock is on, and I'm going to type in 50 over here and tab to get the other one to go to 50. And now it resized everything to exactly the correct size it was when I created it. However, I still have this extra border out here that I don't want. So what I'm going to do is, with it all selected, I'm going to come back here to my uncombine. So I'm going to uncombine them, and I've got this polygon, which is the big one, and this polygon, which is the little one. I can see it selected here. So I'm just going to select the big outer one and delete it. And now I've brought my rectangle in at the correct size. So that's the trick. So to repeat that, in the original drawing program where you made the SVGs, make a border exactly the size of your lens viewing area, which is your canvas, and then put your objects, position your objects inside it, make sure everything is ungrouped, and then bring it in, and it will bring in all the objects correctly. And then just when you get them in, just resize it so that the size of the whole thing, which is going to be combined, is the size of the whole viewing area, which in this case was 50 millimeters. Then uncombine it and delete the outer border, and everything will be correct. So that's the ins and outs of SVGs being imported. So the other thing I want to mention is that if you are creating shapes in another program, like for example CorelDRAW, which I'm going to bring up right here, I've created a rectangle in here. If I save this as an SVG just like this, and I try to import that into RK-CAD, RK-CAD is going to crash. It's not going to like that file at all. And it took me a long time to figure out what was going on, and it just doesn't like it when it saves these internal shapes like this. So how do you fix it? Well, what you want to do is right click on that and convert it to curves. Okay, so if I do that, and then I save this as an SVG, and I bring it into RK-CAD, it's going to like it just fine. Remember not to group anything, but don't have the primitive shapes that are created in drawing programs like circles and text and all that. Just make sure that you convert everything to curves before you export it as an SVG. The other thing to do is, instead of exporting the whole drawing area as an SVG, just select the objects that you want and tell it to export just the selected objects. So the other major new feature that they've added is the ability to do Boolean operations on shapes. And they are located right here, these functions. There's union, intersection, difference, and symmetric difference. So let's go over what they do. So first of all, in order to use them, you have to have at least two shapes selected in order for them to work. So let's create some shapes. I'm just going to make some rectangles. So I'm going to click and drag a rectangle right here, and I'm going to click and drag another one that's overlapping it, and I'm going to go back and select my cursor and reselect them all. Okay, so I've got two shapes selected. They're overlapping here in the center. Let's take a look at the first one, which is union, or also known as weld. So if I click that button with two shapes selected, it's going to create a union between those two shapes. So it eliminated anything that was overlapping and created a solid border around the outside. So this creates, like it looks like, it welded these two shapes together and created a brand new shape out of them. I'm going to undo that. And let's take a look at the next one, which is intersection. Now, where are these two shapes intersecting? Right here in the center. This is where they overlap. So I'm going to select them all, and by clicking intersection, it's going to create a brand new shape out of just the overlapped section. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. I'm going to undo that, and let's take a look at difference. I'm going to select the two shapes again and click difference. And what difference is going to do is use the top shape. This was the shape that was on top, so the one I drew last. Subtract that shape from the bottom shape. So it acted like a cookie cutter and cut out that corner. All right, let me undo that again, and you'll see that this shape here is the one that's second in the sequence. So this is the one that's on top. So this is bottom up. So this shape on top cut out this one. If we wanted to reverse it, we would change where this is in the sequence. So if I right click on this, I've got move up, or move to top, move up, move down, and move to the bottom. So in this case, it's only two shapes. Move up and move to the top would be the same. So I'll just click move up. So let's select them both and click difference again. And now you can see that the shape that was on top, this one, subtracted from this one, which was now below. Right, so that is how that works. And again, I'm going to undo that to go back to having two shapes. And let's take a look at the last one, which they call symmetric difference. Now, I'm not sure why they even put this one here or what it even means for symmetric difference, but I can tell you what it does. If I click it, doesn't look like it did anything, but if you look over here, it's combined those two shapes into a single shape. And it has simply combined them, just like we saw over here with the combine tool, all right, and the uncombine tool. So if I uncombine them, they go back to being two shapes. So this is just another way to do a quick combine of the two shapes. So those are the three new major features that they've added in this update. They've added the ability to do Boolean operations on different shapes. They've increased the number of pens from 10 to 100, and they have added the ability, even though it's kind of wonky and limited, to import SVG files.